running a business and doing being very busy in your life, somebody has to maintain your yard, right? Either you have to do it or you have to hire someone professional to do it. When I came in, working in the business again, there was no structure. So the conversation I would have with my dad, because I did have a conversation with him once I told him, "Hey, I'm gonna quit my pursuit of being a mechanic." And I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to help you lift this company off the ground.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Landscaper's Guide podcast. Today I'm excited to interview my client, Edward Morales Valencia. He's the owner of Tropical Landscaping Services in Buckeye, Arizona. He's got a really successful company, and we're going to talk a bit about sales process, how he's using AI, and maybe some recruiting. Edward, thanks for coming on to the Landscaper's Guide.
No, it's truly an honor and a pleasure to be here, really. I could never think of being on a platform like this, but it's good. It's good to have ideas and experiences really shared.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And before we pressed record, you said that you actually found me through the podcast, and so that's cool. It's kind of coming full circle. Now we get to have a conversation on the show. Tell us a little bit about your business, about your family, about like what do you guys do?
I was introduced into the green industry really two parts in my life. Very early stage is the first part, which happened to be my father. My father took on um, a route that was being sold at the time. And at the time, he was working for a company called Native Resources here in Arizona, which is still around. And he was working two jobs at a hotel in the evening. And he had made a coworker, and they were really good buddies. So my father was able to move up in the ranks pretty fast in that landscaping company, just because of his ability to grab a crew in a truck and get these tasks done. And through that process, he kind of saw how to run a landscaping company professionally. And that's where the idea really bloomed of him thinking, I think I can do this at a smaller scale, but enough to change my life. So that's really what started with him on his own, thinking that maybe I can start off, I can buy a truck and start creating a route. And at that time at his work, his coworker that they became good friends told him like, hey, there has been an opportunity. Uh, Somebody's selling a route, for I believe he said 8,000 at the time, and that was a truck and a couple houses already in the route. And he took it, he took the opportunity, he saw it, it aligned, and he went full, all gas, no brakes. And really, when I was growing up, that's when how I got introduced to it is it was sort of all around me, hard work, especially all my brothers working with my dad because I'm the youngest out of the boys.
How many are there?
There's five of us in total.
Okay.
So I was the youngest out of the boys. I still have a little sister. So they had already gone through working with my dad. And um, in this household, like when you became an age, it was sort of a rite of passage to work with your father. It was
Hmm.
like something you had to do once you became of age. So that's when I first got introduced into a landscaping company. And
What
it was all up,
what age was that for you?
I believe I was 10. I believe I was like 10 years old. And it was like all around me. So it was not, I think, out of the ordinary because my uncle and my cousin Edgar at the time, his son, were doing the same thing. My neighbor with his son were doing the same thing. And every morning we would kind of gather up in the morning, my neighbors drinking their coffee and us, and then my uncle. So it was all around me. I just was not aware that this was like an actual industry.
Uh-huh.
But that's the first part I got introduced into the green industry. The second part is when I got out of the Marine Corps and I had to keep going. Like I knew if I got complacent or just had to stop my rhythm going, I was gonna get complacent and get lazy, which can be a very slippery slope, and it can be very difficult to get yourself out of that once you stop your momentum. So I started working at a mechanic shop, iron maintenance, And that's when I started to figure out I really do like diagnosing problems and solving them. And then at the time, I was still working with my father on the weekends. So then, everybody has a moment like this in their life, especially in the early stage of their life. They start asking, what is it that I want to do for the rest of my life? And what is it that I really want to hone in or craft or be professional at? And at the time, I thought it was going to be being a mechanic, but later on, I soon to find out it was being an entrepreneur, really. And the landscaping industry or this landscaping company was going to be my first trial at being an entrepreneur, and I knew I was gonna do it with anything else. I guess this one was more personal. This one was gonna be personal. So that's how I really got into the green industry. And to tie it back into today, well, running a business and doing being very busy in your life, somebody has to maintain your yard, right? Either you have to do it or you have to hire someone professional to do it. So what TLS is really about is bringing structure, clarity into, at least for me, something that was very chaotic, no structure, no rhythm. And as I'm working in this industry, I start to see from the inside what are the things that I can improve because I sort of use my own product. Like I do my own yard. I have my crew do my yard. So how can I create a structure and so I guess at the core we're a solution based company. So how can I bring structure to something that almost every homeowner deals with? And that's what really TLS is all about.
So how long has the company been around in its entirety?
I want to say 1998.
1998.
Yes, is when my
That
father was working on his own doing this.
and what are maybe some of the big changes maybe that you've brought into the company? Because you're now a co-owner of the company with your dad.
Yeah.
What are maybe some things that he did that you're like, this is absolutely the way to do it? What are maybe some things that you're like, Dad, we got to do it this way that are now some of the changes that you're talking about?
Well, I feel like the company has been around for quite a while now, and it's really was sustained on hard work, consistency, and just being reliable. But when I came in, working in the business, again, there was no structure. So the things the conversation I would have with my dad, because I did have a conversation with him once I told him, hey, I'm gonna quit my pursuit of being a mechanic and I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to help you lift this company off the ground. So my dad is not very familiar with how a business works in that aspect. So that really came from trust of, letting him know that I don't know how that looks yet, but I know in dissecting it little by little, it's gonna slowly reveal and I'm gonna refine it as I go. And that's really the change that's going on still today.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about sales process. So what are some of the ways that you used to do sales, and then how are we doing sales now, and how is it different and better?
So our sales process in the very beginning, it's just adapt on the fly. It was very hard to learn. So I quickly created structure, clarity, and consistency, which again, as I'm going through the process of seeing what our company needs, I realized those are very friction points to our clients where there's no structure, there's no consistency, and there's no clarity. So the first is a structure. I wanted to make sure that if a client wanted to contact us, it has to be as easy as possible for them, whether a QR code or an actual streamlining the process on filling out a form. That way I can really focus on at what is the problem that they need a solution for. So that sales process has helped us a lot and is I guess it's our first one because there was none before this. So this is our first iteration of our sales process, and even then, it's still getting dialed in and refining and getting better.
Yes, tell me a little bit, what was your experience like working with Ramblin Jackson on your process?
Well, I really believe that it led me into many decisions, right? Once I realized I did want to use Ramblin Jackson and see what were you guys all about. I then realized I had to use AI to because the questions that I was getting asked at the meeting were questions I never asked myself. So oft times or after the meetings, I would spend time with my AI and really dissecting those questions and what does that mean for me and what does that mean for my company.
That's really cool. Tell me more about that. What were some of the things that maybe you learned or you talked about clarity that came out from that?
Sometimes it's very hard to look back at it and really explain how it was now because it seems so natural, so obvious, like this is what we should have done. But at the time, and this is why AI was a very big help for me because um, well, I didn't know where to start. And that's the crazy thing about this tool is that you could be completely ignorant about a topic or have no idea where to start. And in through the inquiries or talking back and forth with this tool helps you figure out the right questions and then dial in the answers or the solution to that question in your company.
Yeah, I love it. Tell me more. How else are you using AI in your landscape company?
Well, I look at AI a little differently. I try to approach it very differently. I don't necessarily use AI to do the things I don't want to do because I notice a lot of people use or hand off or they think they can hand off things to AI and think that it's going to be like them or present themselves how they wanted to. And communication was the first one. So clarity, right? Communication creates clarity. So for a while, I spent time training my AI how I would naturally overly respond to my clients and it would be in real time. Like if a client would text me, I would run it through AI and kind of explain, really focus on explaining how do I need you to reply because this is how I would reply anyways, but I need you to dial it in better. That way it could be faster. And because I'm gonna do it anyways, and if I could do it faster, I probably would. But if I can have a helper somewhere where I can hand it off and really get how I want it to sound every single time. That was just something different for our company. It was a big thing. It was a big change.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think, communicating with clients is something that many landscape companies struggle with. And their
Yeah.
customers don't understand what their landscaper is saying, and they get rushed, clunky texts or emails. So I like that you're kind of taking a minute. Are you using ChatGPT or what AI are you using?
Yeah, right now I'm using ChatGPT 5, their newest model.
Yeah.
Very excited for this model. I've been listening to many podcasts anticipating this drop. But yeah, ChatGPT is the one I use a lot for my company. I don't use other tools right now just because I'm very involved in my company. So I have to be make sure what am I going to spend my time on? I have to be very so you got to be very careful on if you're so I'm already tied up in a lot of things, so if I have this amount of time, I gotta make sure I'm gonna pick the correct investment for my time.
Well, so I think it's kind of like in landscaping, there's a million different tools you could buy and learn to use. But
Yeah,
if you have a bunch of tools that you don't know how to completely use, they're not very valuable to you.
correct,
So
correct.
that's why I use ChatGPT pretty extensively for a lot of things, and it helps me be a lot faster and better organized. And one thing, I don't know if you're doing this, but you can take screenshots of texts and upload,
Yeah, yeah,
and it like transcribes it.
yeah, yeah.
It's really amazing, like how quickly it's like, here's what's going on, here's what so and so said. So I'm definitely using that. So Edward, you were in the Marine Corps, then you were a mechanic, and then you were like, you know what, I want to be an entrepreneur. Now that you are, how is it? And is it what you thought it would be?
So it really started when I was working in the mechanic industry, figuring out that I like to diagnose and figure out problems and fixing them, and then seeing this beautiful machine work how it's intended to. So that's when I first that felt good. So I knew that about myself that I like figuring out problems and solving them. I didn't know yet at the time that it was being an entrepreneur. It was later evident to me once I started working more on the weekends with my father and seeing this man continue this company on his own. And I would say I'm a very good observer. So, seeing other businesses and products and services, when you start to really seeing what they're about, a really well crafted business or a service or a product usually ends up to serve others. So I really like that idea. So I kind of just, and then what really tied it in and made it final was at the time my father was working a lot Monday through Sunday. And I felt like, I'm going to dedicate my time and my energy and really lifting this company up and crafting it into something that eventually will serve others. And it's very thought out. It's thoughtful. It's not just rushed. And that kind of sold it for me. I really wanted to start that journey.
That's cool, man. So, what's your favorite part about it now that you're doing it?
I guess doing refinements. Um, I listen to a lot of podcasts of all different entrepreneurs, and most of them have nothing to do with landscaping, but they all have a lot of things in common as far as finding the right people, finding the right sales in
Mhm.
process and systems. So I guess the very difficult part was starting what is it that you offer, starting to figure out what is it that you do, creating frameworks that you're like your offer framework, your operational frameworks. And even that, those words and those terminologies were very new to me. With the help of AI, really understanding what does this mean for me and what does this mean for my business helped me create those systems and processes. So that was very fun. But the thing I really enjoy doing is refining it, making it better, getting data points. How can we improve it? How can we can make it better to serve people?
That's cool. Yeah, I like that part of it too. And I use AI as a translation tool. A lot of times people think of translation as like English to Spanish or Spanish to English or, Japanese to
Yeah,
whatever. But I get emails sometimes from my accountant. Like sometimes he sends me these long, really long emails, and I'm like, help me understand at a high school level what my accountant is saying to me.
yeah,
And then I do, and I'm able to I need to sometimes spend some time, like you're talking about, when I'm working with certain people or I'm learning something, and I kind of dumb it down and I say, hey, here's this thing, explain it to me at a high school level. And it does. And I'm
yeah,
like, oh, okay, my accountant is asking me to do X. And if I tell a lot of times it's like I need to translate what he's telling me into instruction for my bookkeeper. My bookkeeper
yeah.
that needs to change something. So I'll say, translate this email into a request I can send to my bookkeeper. Or sometimes even I work with really technical people on my own team, web developers, SEO strategists. We do online advertising. And sometimes they give a really technical response. And I
Yeah.
need to then translate that into an email to my client. And sometimes I'll
Interesting.
literally say, translate this message from my SEO strategist into a simple email my customer would understand. And then I think the most important thing is always reading it and editing,
Yeah.
being like, does this actually make sense? Is this what they really said? Because I've also
Yeah.
had employees take it too far where they're clearly just chat GPTing like garbage out to people. And it's like, you didn't do the step of comprehending and understanding what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Well, that's the really cool thing about this tool, so getting all those emails, it's sort of what you were gonna do anyways. You had to read these, kind of dissect them, and that was gonna take a really long time. But what this tool helps you to do is streamline the process of something that you were gonna do anyways, and now really focus on understanding it and making it and optimizing on the performance of the decisions you have to make, the people you have to talk to. So it's a great tool. I think that's a great way that you're using it to help you dissect and understand and make the correct decisions.
Good, good. Well, did you have a question for me about recruiting?
So the first question I have for you, where did you go to find the right people to bring your vision to life? I know a lot of people struggle to find trust and or confidence to pass on what they worked on so hard and pass it on and make sure people deliver that vision.
Like a lot of landscapers, I started out just doing the work, meaning I was doing social media, I was doing SEO, I was doing email, and I was selling to clients, and I was managing clients, and I was managing freelancers and things. And so initially, I've been in business 16 years this month. We're recording this in August. It's going to come out probably in December, but um, I did a lot of in-person networking. I like 5 to 6 meetings a week. I would go to in-person networking. And at that time, I didn't have a very clear vision, Edward, of what I wanted to do. It was literally to like pay rent next week kind of thing. And so I didn't have a mission or a vision or any of the things that I later clarified later once I realized, oh, I actually want to grow intentionally and I want to my business was very chaotic in the beginning and it was really difficult because I didn't have a vision and I didn't know who my hell yes customer was. But I don't think that there's any shortcut to figuring it out besides doing the work. Like you got to go do work for people and get paid. And over time you figure out, oh, I'm good at this and I want to do more of this and I like this type of customer and I don't like this type of customer. So as far as where I started, I mean, it was mainly in-person networking events and like referrals to people. And that was very inefficient because I used to do what I called the beer meeting, where I would meet people in person and we'd have a beer. And I was like, are you cool? I'm cool. You say you can do this, you're hired. And I really didn't vet people
Yeah.
and I learned later that they were not a fit, but really it was my own hiring process that was the problem. So eventually I started doing things like skills assessments and personality assessments, and I learned about hiring and recruiting. And I started applying what works for getting clients for my own business and for my own clients to recruiting. And that worked really well. And what I mean by that is I wrote really specific job advertisements meant for a specific person to read. I was like, who
Mm,
would be a great project manager? And why would they want to come work for me? And who would be a bad project manager? And how do I weed them out? And for me, that formula works well. I put a really long description on my website with a video, and the video is often 9 or 10 minutes long. And then I use Indeed advertising to funnel people to that page and they go through
mm.
my hiring system. That works really well for me at my agency. And I think it could work at a landscape company for office positions.
Yeah.
I don't think I would not necessarily recommend all of that for if I needed field crew, if I needed,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a lot of word of mouth and a lot of it though does make sense. You still need a clear job description so that way when
Yeah.
you get a referral and it might come via text message, hey, you should talk to my buddy. And now you're texting with them, boom, maybe you have a page that you send them that has a video. And I've done recruiting content in Spanish for clients. I've done recruiting content in English. And I think you got to have both depending on where you
Yeah.
are and who's applying. Because if you have this wonderful long form thing in English and you have a Spanish speaking person who doesn't read it, then
Yeah.
it's not going to work.
Correct. Yeah, I completely agree. And that's a perfect example of how an entrepreneur starts figuring out their vision as they're providing solutions to problems in their company. That's good.
Yeah, yeah. So it kind of happened organically that way. And then I started studying recruiting. And really the big picture is it's like marketing. You need to pick Like,
Hmm.
who's a good fit for this? And then how do I go and get them? How do I go after them? As far as hiring
Interesting.
people to stay aligned with the vision, that partly required me to clarify the vision. And at one point, I was really wishy washy about the vision.
Yeah.
I would literally had a meeting where I'm like, guys, I think we should pick a niche industry to focus on. What do you think it should be? And one person's like, I think we should do dentists. Another's like restaurants. One of them wanted to do e-commerce. And I'm like, I think it's going to be Pilates studios. And so for a period, we focused on Pilates studios. And
Really?
yes, we did. And I
Oh
went and
man.
spoke at the world's largest Pilates conference. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity and experience. But I learned that that industry just didn't really need what I do. And they wouldn't pay what, I mean, what I could do for a landscaper for the same fee, the landscaper would get way more return on investment. Let's
Correct.
pretend that a landscaper sells $20,000 projects, whereas the Pilates studio might get somebody to spend $2,500 a year.
Yeah.
If I get one customer for the landscaper at 20 grand, he's going to be pretty happy. And now I'm going to get him another one and another one and another one. And
Yeah.
whereas I didn't realize that. I didn't think about that. So that took some time. And then once I clarified the vision, I needed to ask some people to leave. And that was one of the surprising things that I don't think people talk about in having a vision is that once you have it, if it's the vision, then you need to go forward with it. And sometimes that
Correct.
means that some people on your team don't share that vision. They want to take the company, like I said, e-commerce. I had somebody who really wanted to do e-commerce. It's so different from what we do at Ramblin Jackson. And that person, no bad feelings, but what they
Yeah.
wanted in their career and what we wanted were not aligned at all. So I think that's meanwhile, it attracts the right people. So when you have a clear vision,
Correct. Yeah.
some people will be like, that sounds really cool. I'd love to help you do that. Whereas if you're like kind of wishy-washy about it, then you get people who are half in. And so when I was half in on the vision, I had a whole team of people who were half in, and it created a lot of chaos. And that was my fault.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I think you're right. A lot of people do overlook that. I think what most people overlook too is the eager that people do want to help sometimes when there's a clear vision. There's a lot of people that do want to help.
There are a lot of people out there, and I find that I'm fortunate. I have a number of people who have worked with me for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, um, and they actually like the vision of the company. They want to help us get where we're going. So, as far as the third thing about telling the story of the brand, a lot of that is again happened just kind of naturally. Like I can tell
Yeah.
the story that I pursued the Pilates industry and failed. And that meanwhile, I was speaking at a landscape trade show where I got 3 clients who then referred me to 3 more, and they all got amazing results. And that's just true. So I think the story, I think sometimes people get hung up on trying to like create a story. You already have a story.
Yeah.
You just kind of need to tell it. Like your story is interesting. Um, that's pretty cool that you had this experience at 10 years old where it was like, all right, Edward, it's time to go to work.
Yeah.
That shaped
Well,
who you are. So there's nothing that's it. That is part of the story. That's really cool.
yeah. Yeah, it was an experience, and I think it's all about, you know, you got to think about at the time, parenting. The pa parents want best for their children. So maybe, at the time, maybe my father thought this was the best way to keep me out of trouble, make sure I was going in the right path, and maybe the sooner, even if it was just raking the leaves or just doing quite a little bit of here and there, was a good foundation to point you in the right direction as far as hard work.
Well, I think giving little boys a job of some kind is one of the best ways to keep them out of trouble. Because when I was about that age, it wasn't as professional, I guess, as yours. Like, but my grandma who lived down the street, she was like a grandma. Um, she put me to work. And she had all these oak trees. And I remember she had this old push lawnmower, a real lawnmower. And in order to mow the lawn, the first thing you had to do was walk the yard and pick up all the sticks. And that alone took half an hour. It was a huge yard.
Yeah.
And so she totally could have afforded to hire somebody to come do it. But her having me do it gave me something to do for several hours, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and now I'm not in trouble during those 2 hours.
Yeah, and I'm sure even like subconsciously or like you learned something out of it, you learned that hard work. There's something about hard work, after raking those leaves or picking up everything you had to, you coming inside and actually enjoying whatever your grandma would give you. Probably start in states of feeling that this feels good, this feels good.
It did feel good. And I remember, I mean, she made butter and cheese sandwiches. So she made her own bread and it was really good. And she made these lettuce, it was like lettuce, butter, and cheese. And it was amazing with lemonade.
I'm
So
sure.
that was amazing. And then so she had a really cool yard because in the back under these oak trees was this pile, this compost pile. And she had these two piles that she managed and she'd rotate them to make compost. And then
Oh, okay.
later in the fall, then we would spread what had broken down into compost over her garden beds.
Sweet. Very
Yeah,
efficient.
it was. So yeah, she was she hardly used her garbage. So if something like a paper towel, an eggshell, any kind of vegetable or apple
Yeah.
cores or whatever, everything went into that compost. And now that I think of it, she was very fit. She lived into her 90s and was very fit. Her
Wow.
yard was enormous. So just simply walking through her yard for her was like exercise.
Yeah, I'm telling you something about just keep going, just keep the momentum going, and
Yeah.
it seems it keeps you happy. It keeps you, with purpose.
Yeah. Well, so what about you, Edward? What's the vision of your company? Where are you headed?
So I spent now, working with you guys, even before about like 2 years, creating all these systems and process and refining them. And I think what's next for TLS is really now telling the world who we are, our story, what is it that we want to do. And mainly it came out of the result of living the experience. So we really want to buy people their time back, having the opportunity to, because time is one of the most important things that people value. So the next big thing for Teal is just really telling the world what we're really about and why we came up with this solution. And in this case, it has to do with maintenance plans and maintenance as far as homeowners and property managers.
Yeah, what do you wanting to do with your maintenance plans? Yeah, I know you have two kind of key packages, right?
Yes, so I think, and this helped a lot with AI and taking in, because I'm out in the field as well, so taking those data
Oh,
points and then putting them in an AI and helping them structuring them. So and that's one of the great opportunities AI will give is personalization and tailorization. So the main goal for these maintenance packages to give people what they want and not having to think about it, and not coming off as trying to always sell them something, but really, if this problem sounds like you, then this packet or this plan is your solution. And if this is if like for example, if your yard is has to have more upkeep, more rotational and flowers, and you just want to enjoy them, then this packet is for you. This package is for you.
cool. Well, hey, I've really enjoyed meeting you on Zoom. I can't wait to see you at Elevate in person. For folks listening who might want to network with you, how can we get in touch?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Edward Morales. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find our Instagram page, tropical underscore landscaping AZ. So we can connect there and see what we can work together.
Cool, man. I'll put links to that in our show notes. And Edward, thanks so much for coming on the Landscaper's Guide podcast.
It was a pleasure, Jack. It was really an honor to be on here.
Yeah, it was my honor. Thank you.
No, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Edward. And if you did, and you'd like to have a conversation with me and my team at Ramblin Jackson, book your marketing brainstorm call at landscapersguide.com/brainstorm. See our show notes for that. We'll help you figure out who is your hell yes customer and which sales and marketing tactics are going to help you get more of them fast. My name's Jack Jostes, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video here on YouTube.